Okay, so we're going to go for a walk. A nice sunny Saturday morning here in Scotland, and today's episode is entitled The Diary of an Exorcist, which I thought was quite funny. I've just asked my guides before I started the session this episode and just said, what should I call it? What should I talk about today? And this is the title they gave me, and they said, the rest is up to you to discover. And so I'd first like to just kind of sit with the first impressions we get of what it's like in terms of clearing, energies, entities, demonic attachments. And the first thing that comes to my mind is movies. There's a movie called The Exorcist. There's many horror movies that show kind of demonic possession. And you also hear many stories, even in the mental health field, or often in the justice systems and court cases, you hear people claiming to be possessed. And I think it's a really interesting subject. It's always fascinated me, until recently it scared me. The thought of another entity being able to take over your physical body is, of course, scary. And first I want to just go into really sharing some of the experiences that I've had over the last years. I've been performing darkness clearing and healing sessions, and what's really beautiful is the reality of the experience I've had so far anyway have been, yes, some are, they involve aspects of exorcism for sure, and demonic attachments, but so far they haven't been as kind of violent as the glorified Hollywood movies. They're much more subtle, but I think that's also it's also the kind of superpower of darkness, is that it loves the fact that it can be what's the word? That it can be subtle, that it can be mischievous, and allow you to really underestimate its power and its influence. It's really a beautiful sunny day today. It's funny, I'm wearing a big black jacket, and it's very, very warm, and I suspect, warm for Scotland, it's about 6 degrees Celsius, and I'm sure through the coming day it'll warm up a bit. So to share some of the experiences I've helped people with. When I start usually at the start of a clearing session, I will I ask one of the guides of the client to step forwards, and what's beautiful is you get to get a sense of their often their galactic history, like what their lives have been like. And what I really enjoy about connecting with their guides is that you get a true sense of someone through their guides as well, without really meeting the person. It's often the case, I just don't know, I've never met the person, the client. And when we start on an energy scan, I'm often guided to either start scanning through someone's light body and physical body. I'm just going to step off the road in a second. And I often see quite quickly you can see whether there's a large attachment there. There's it's almost like the longer and the bigger the attachment, so the bigger the entity that's attached, the longer it's been there is definitely an aspect. It also signifies its power and its kind of influence and integration with the host. And there's just so many different ways that the attachments themselves could happen, and I do have a different podcast that talks about energy attachments and entities and removing them. I want to talk more about the kind of possession aspects and the stronger forces in this. And so recently I've done some sessions where I've seen runes on someone's human form or their light body, and they've been from an attachment. I've also seen aspects of themselves, so kind of darker aspects of a soul of their own soul that's been separated out, and it's usually separated out by some sort of trauma. And so when there's been trauma, the gifts that are associated with the trauma itself and the aspects of the soul that connected to the trauma are often severed, but they still exist together. Like when I say severed, that's maybe a strong word, when they're separated in that the souls are kind of quantum. They stretch across space and time, and they have the ability to be many places at once, and also to fragment. And so when a soul fragments, part of it can be in another space and time, but like quantum entanglements, where two particles are forever connected through space and time and communicate directly with each other, they're never really separated. They're always talking, always together. And so when a soul separates out some of its darker aspects, that part of it can end up being like a separate entity. And so at first glance it's easy to look at someone's energy body and think, well, they're being attacked by something, which is true. They might have an attachment of something, or being hurt, but sometimes it's actually them. It's part of them that is attacking themselves, and it's because it's almost like a betrayal. Like it feeds. It's like this cycle of, well, the darker side of a soul was separated, and it has this anger and hatred towards the lighter side, and then the eternal struggle of dark and light. So that just continues. But I think what's beautiful also is that it's a chance for, in these healing sessions, it's a chance for the darker aspect of the soul to be seen, because part of the separation is due to denial. And so to talk through some examples of how the separations happen, I've had some clients where they've had a beautiful gift, and with that gift they acted in anger and they maybe killed many people, and as a result of that action they feel such guilt and such shame. And so it's almost like there's something related to the gift itself, that people's gifts often transcend. They're like quantum gifts. They transcend space and time. And so when there's this big kind of energy blast, it's not just a case of the gift itself being expressed. It's also that the gift, the power that's connected to the gift, because it's so integrated with the soul, create this big kind of energy burst in space and time, and that also with intention can cause the separation of the soul. I've seen clients where they've destroyed planets, destroyed enemies that have attacked their loved ones. I've seen people seeking revenge on what's happened to them. I mean, if you can imagine it, and often at like a galactic scale, then it's happened. And I've seen a lot of it so far. And it also reminds you what power a single soul has. Like, a single soul could affect the entire universe very easily. And I think that's really beautiful. It's really beautiful to acknowledge. And then to talk a bit about my experience and beliefs around, the judgment of people's actions, is that there is no judgment. There's no right and wrong. There's just light and dark and everything in between. And as souls, we are everything in between, and we often, through our lifetimes, vary in the kind of spectrum of those colours in between dark and light all the time, just like our human form does every day. And yeah, I also love that the judgment aspect, because what's really nice is that when we finish this lifetime, I feel that we go and have like a soul. It's almost like a soul review. So you see your whole life played back to you again, and this time, instead of being unaware of the effect you have on others, you are aware, and so you're shown. Come on, Patch. Come on. So you're shown the different aspects of whether it's been positive or negatively received. And then as part of that journey, the soul can decide what happens next, and there's also, like, in terms of next lifetime and what journey they take next. So it might be, if you've had a lot of negative, if you've given out a lot of negative actions or energies in a lifetime, the soul might actually choose to repeat it again because they're wanting to learn how to do this better in future lifetimes, and so keep repeating a lesson until you learn. And then there's also the aspect of karma. So I feel like if I start big, I feel that the universe is a free will universe, and that every soul's entitled to make its own decisions, and that is negative behavior if you try to influence other living things, free will. And then there's karma, and so whenever you have a negative, whenever you create negativity, you create an imbalance in karma, and so karma, the more negativity you create, the more that comes back to you. Come on, Patch, let's go, come on. And it's just like this, it's almost like balancing scales, and so as you push it down, as you push out negative energy, karma just resets and pushes it back to you. And just like positive, if you push out positive energy, it comes back to you, and then everything in between. So, and in terms of judgment, it's only really ourselves that judge ourselves. So when you keep this in mind, when I realised anyway, everyone's got their entitled to their own beliefs, but when I realised that, I am my darkness, my light, and everything in between, you feel much more comfortable with seeing the devastation and the negative behaviours of others, because you see it's a reflection of you, that we're all one, we're all part of the same same universe and reflections of each other. So for all the devastation I see in others' past lives, I know that, I've been part of similar situations myself. Okay, so I thought that was important to just explain. And so when we then link that back to things like possession and exorcism, well, the way that darkness works is that it's often like a separation and denial of parts of our souls. And all kinds of things can happen. I've seen clients where they've had a wound, often in a chakra, and it's left open. It's like an open door, and it's also wounded, so it's very attractive to like a negative entity. I almost see it like to the negative entity, it would look like an open door where there was light shining out of it, but the light was kind of misty with like darkness in it too. And that light, that fear, mist is food. And so the dark energy can, negative entity can like just visit that, and as it goes towards it, it's kind of rewarded with the fact that this is like a being, this is something that is living and interacting. Hi.
The sports centre, I'm on the right roads.
Yep, straight down there, and then just take your first left. That takes you into the back of the sports centre.
Yeah.
And you'll see the playing fields there.
Oh, right, thank
Okay,
you.
no problem. Sorry?
Is it Dunbar United football ground?
Yeah, they play there.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, down there and on your left.
Thank you, lovely.
Okay,
Dog.
thank you. See you. Some people taking directions to the local football club. So, where was I? Yeah, so it was very beautiful to see how entities and energies like can come through wounds, and the wounds that people have are often very self-inflicted. Like going back to the experience of separation, it creates a wound in us. And so just like in your physical body, when you have an open wound, infections come in. This is how a wounding works with negative energies. And in terms of the kind of scale of what I've experienced, well, everything from entities which are like just almost like little bugs, like cockroaches, and these are around us all the time. Come on, Patch. Sniffing loads. They're kind of everywhere. They're small. You can pick them up if you're not really aware of it. And you just kind of like leech onto you. They grab onto you, and you can have quite a few stuck to you. You may not notice them. They're just opportunists, and they're around us all the time. And then there's all the way up to conscious, demonic entities, and the bigger, more conscious beings that I've met, demons. They're much more, how do you describe them? They're much more powerful, and they're way more intelligent, and they definitely have a bit like a light worker. They have a mission as well. They have a mission to, it might be, pain, fear, chaos, guilt, shame, any of these. And so sometimes they're almost like they guard the light body of someone or an aspect of their soul, and they're often in place to stop people accessing their true gifts. Because if you think about it, if you effectively trap someone or trap their soul, they become very frustrated. They know that they feel that there's something else out there, but they can't see it. They know that there's more gifts available to them. There's a happier life for them, but they're held back from it. And the demon loves that, because they're holding someone back. The more you constrain someone, the more fear they have, and so that's food. So it makes sense that they act as guardians, but also it makes sense that when I approach them, that they are not happy to see me. And there's also things like soul contracts, where clients have kind of done a deal where they've said, they've maybe been introduced to an entity, and the entities they often kind of trick you into agreeing to something, because once you agree, it becomes like a contract. It is your statements of your free will. And it's very difficult to remove that. But when I do a session with someone, before I can do a session, I have to get their permission. And I think that's really beautiful, because it means that someone's saying to me, and I think there's kind of magic in the words as well, of the title of the session, that and I make it very clear what happens. And when I start a session, before I kind of go under, I also talk a lot about what's going to happen in the session. And I think that's really beautiful, because it just sets out the intention, and it sets out the agreement, and that really overrides anything that's been agreed before. Come on, Patch, he's just sniffing a lot. Come on. So, yeah, I feel like I've kind of covered two areas at once, not really brought them together. Like, one aspect is just people feeling, the separation of their soul, and how I've worked together to bring people's soul fragments back together. Some of them are in kind of voids or lost in space and time through separation, and others, they're a relatively similar vibration to today. And then there's also some which are just, they're in hell, so they're in the different levels of hell, and you have to go into the elevator and find their name, and then push the button and end up in the right frequency. And so and then like finding someone's fragment, helping them kind of, communicating them, seeing them with them, seeing their torment, acknowledging it, is so powerful. And then the next step of like bringing them back out. So we go through all that. And then there's the aspect of, kind of like a foreign entity, like something that's not part of someone's soul. And those attachments are kind of the opposite of what we just discussed, like that you end up clearing them. I often see Archangel Michael with his light sword, and so he'll separate. It's often pretty gruesome, but he will, like, if a being won't leave initially, and we always give them an opportunity to leave, which so far they've never done with their free will. They're then disconnected. It's often like the head that's disconnected first, and then the rest of the body removed, and then they just have the ability to choose where they go, and that could be to return to source, or with their own free will they can decide if they just want to leave the host, leave them alone forever. And I'm also learning that it's really important just to make sure that they really do. Come on, Pitch, let's go, come on. Yeah, because you don't want something hanging around. No one wants like a disgruntled, wounded entity hanging around your house or whatever it is. So yeah, that's really cool when we're able to do a removal. And I think it's also just important to acknowledge that this isn't a them and us. This is more about honouring you know, the darker aspects and the lighter aspects of everyone, and that we also need to honour free will. And so when you honour that free will, you end up in a situation where you know, you're making a choice about whether to retain something that's attached to you or not. And for every being in this universe that has an attachment and that wants it is, you know, completely up to them. And there's also like a beautiful lesson that these beings often teach us. You know, even just teaching us about their existence is a very valuable lesson, and how to protect herself, which is really just through setting intention. And you know, when I think of my own protection, I think of always having a golden ball of light that surrounds my whole body, and it comes from me. And whenever I want to kind of enhance it, I'll connect up into source or below into the planet's core, into its heart. And if I really need help, I'll ask my guides and archangels to help me, and I'll just say it out loud, and just ask for help. And again, that's the free will, right? Because it's a free will universe, nothing has the right to control you. And so if it tries to or succeeds in doing it, you have the right to stop it. And of course you reflect on things like, well, how does that really work in reality? Like, loads of people end up in prison, and that is true. And I find it hard to judge, you know, both sides. Just that there's choice that people make, you know, for both the people that for the people that are conscious of decisions they make and actions they take, and then they end up being imprisoned, and then those that prison them. And you know, for the fact that, you know, my money each month goes into taxes which pay for people to be in prison, you know, I'm part of that too. So yeah, I don't judge, but I understand that it is part of our civilization at this time. And it's something that I've asked other guides or you know, people about. It's like, what happens in more civilized societies where there's, you know, where there's how do they get around the fact that there's a need for imprisonment? And what I see is a bit like in a clearing session where people are, you know, the energy of their entity is just kind of cast away, so they're free, but they have to leave, and they never return. And that is a kind of inverted prison where you're not allowed to go back to the thing that you loved doing, and that in itself is punishment. And then this karma does the rest. So yeah, I think we're coming to an end. It was really interesting to talk about aspects of exorcism, and yeah, if you feel like you have an attachment, or you're being troubled by demons, or you know someone that is and that I can help, please just let me know. You can go to jonbinnie.com and find me there. So yeah, thank you very much, and I'd like to send you my love, and I hope you have a beautiful weekend. Thank you.